guys, welcome back. So now I'm going to explain the theory behind lower cross syndrome, because this was a few questions have come up on this from students. So this theory is taken from Vladimir Janda's theory, and his theory is based on the postural versus phasic muscles. So these are, some muscles are postural, so they hold us steady, they're there for stability, and then we have phasic muscles, which are then movers of the body again. Okay, so here we're going to start, so I'm just going to bend your elbow here. So here we're going to look at lower cross syndrome. We also have an upper cross syndrome, so for today it is lower cross. So if we were to take an axis through the hip, so that was our center point of our cross. So then if we were to run a cross through the hip here, we can split the muscles into 4 groups. So we're looking at quads on the front, hamstrings and glutes on the back. We're looking at thoracolumbar fascia, erector spinae, lats, QL on the back here, and then at the front we're looking at abdominals and TVA. So if we were to design the cross here, we can see that our quad muscles, our erector spinae, they would be our postural cross. And if we go the opposite way, we're then going from our rectus abdominis, our TVA, across to our glutes and our hamstrings, with these are phasic. So with phasic muscles, they tend to get long and weak if underused over time. With our postural muscles, they tend to get short and tight if overused over time. So you can imagine if a person was in a slightly seated position, so imagine if you're going to slightly sit back. So if they were in a seated position for long periods of time, you can see the quads are being held in a shortened position. Then the glutes and the hamstrings are being lengthened and stretched. So we're going to straighten this up here again. So over time what happens then is we develop this tightening of the postural muscles here on the front. We develop a weakening of the hamstrings and the glutes on the back because they're being overstretched. And over time what can happen is this allows the hips to fall forward. And sometimes that then can increase hypolordosis here on the lumbar spine. So on your postural assessment, what you might notice is somebody has a hypolordotic spine. When you find the ASIS on the front of the hip, you notice that they're going to be slightly forward. Well, one could be a little bit more forward than the other. So again, just to recap, this is the lower cross syndrome. Here's our cross through the axis of the hip. We're looking at postural muscles versus phasic muscles. Overused, the postural muscles are going to become too tight, which then pulls the pelvis forward into an anterior pelvic tilt. The abdominals, the glutes and the hamstrings are being lengthened and weakened over time. They're not firing, and it allows the pelvis to be pulled forward. That in turn then creates a hypolordotic curve. The fascia then, the thoracolumbar fascia at the back, can get very tight, very, very dense. So this is where a client might experience a lot of stiffness, a lot of tightness, and they'll tell you that their mobility isn't great on this area. And you'll see it when they do their rungs, they're kind of really stiff and tight. So from a treatment point of view, we need to get in and lengthen and stretch out the postural muscles. We need to do some rehab for hamstrings, quads and for abdominals as well. So this is at home where you'd look at strengthening exercises and then you'd look at stretching exercises. But again, you have to address that what is going on with the client, whether it is something, a daily activity, whether it is a sport, whether they're seated position for long periods of time, to see what you can help them just to avoid this pelvic tilt, this tightness that's going on here. Okay, so again, this is Vladimir Janda's theory. It's postural versus phasic muscles. And I hope this helps you to understand the lower cross syndrome a little bit better. Thank you very much.